Hello, this is David, and in this video I'm going to share with you my top 3 ways for feeling less tired for your swim training sessions. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I believe that in order to improve as quickly as possible at swimming, we need to be able to bring both focus and intensity to our training sessions, for which naturally we need to be feeling energetic and not tired, because otherwise our training isn't going to be optimum, where we're not going to improve as much as we could do in each training session, which is only going to prolong the amount of time that we need in order to improve to the level that we want to. But before we begin, a reminder that for more swimming content to subscribe to this YouTube channel, and for swim coaching head on over to westcough.com. But otherwise, without any further ado, let's dive right in to today's video. So I'm going to begin with the most obvious answer to this question, and that is to get more sleep. And if you're not prepared to do this one, then I don't know what to tell you, because there is going to be nothing else that is going to help you to feel more energetic for your swim training sessions. It seems to be pretty common knowledge that the average adult requires about 8 hours of sleep each night. However, what seems to be less well known is the fact that the amount of time you spend in bed doesn't actually equal the amount of time you spend asleep. And so people end up going to bed for 8 hours a night, think that they're getting their 8 hours of sleep, and then wake up wondering why they feel so tired because they spent 8 hours in bed. However, it takes a little bit of time for you to get off to sleep, and naturally we also wake a couple of times throughout the course of the night, and all that adds up to taking away from those 8 hours of sleep, which means you end up getting less as a result, and therefore not feeling as fully refreshed as you could be. I know from my Whoop wristband that I typically spend about 50 minutes awake each night. I'm not particularly good at getting to sleep efficiently, and as a result, in order to get my 8 hours of sleep, I actually need to spend about 9 hours in bed, or at least trying to be sleeping for 9 hours. As well, what also seems to be not so common knowledge is that exercise actually increases your sleep need, which is pretty important knowledge for people that are trying to improve at swimming, where the more that you exert yourself, the more sleep that you need added on to that baseline 8 hours, which can then realistically bring up your sleep need to 8.5 or maybe 9 hours, which will then translate to 9.5, 10 hours in bed. So fundamentally, the biggest thing that you can do to increase your energy levels and going to training not feeling tired is to get more sleep. So tip number 2 is also sleep related and seems to be not very well known across the general population, which is to achieve consistent going to bed and wake times. Now, the reason for this is because our bodies operate on its own internal body clock, the circadian rhythm. You've probably heard of it before, where the body likes to do things at the same time each day, where if you're going to bed and awaking at erratically different times every day, your body starts to wonder what is going on, when do I actually need to be going to bed, when do I actually need to be waking up, and it just gets confused, and as a result it can make it difficult to go to sleep when you want to go to sleep, and similarly to get up when you want to get up. And therefore, by keeping consistent awake and bedtimes, a nice routine in that regard, it enables your body to get into a consistent rhythm. It starts to know when it's time to go to sleep, and as a result makes you feel tired when it's actually bedtime. And similarly, it also knows when it's time to wake up, which is when you may start to experience the phenomenon of awaking before your alarm goes off. It's probably because you've been getting up at that time consistently for a few days or so, and therefore your body's got used to that fact and then gets you up at that time. So in order to help you maximize the quality of your sleep, help your body to understand when it's time to go to bed, when it's time to feel tired, and similarly when it's time to feel awake, when it's time to wake up in the morning, by going to bed and waking up at consistent times throughout the day. So my third and final piece of advice revolves around eating. And what I've noticed is that the general population don't really follow a logical approach to their nutrition. It's quite random and falls into social habits where typically someone will get up, they'll have breakfast or skip it if they're not really inclined to breakfast. They'll then have a smallish lunch or again skip it altogether because they may have a busy day on at work, and then they get home, they have a large amount of food because they haven't really taken on many calories throughout the course of the day, and therefore they're hungry and they're tired, and they do so just before they hit the pillow to go to sleep. And this is rather illogical because they're taking on the calories right before they don't need it, and they haven't taken on the calories when they do need it. Why are you taking on calories through a large dinner just before you're about to go to sleep? You don't really need those calories in the build up to going to bed as you're winding down to go to sleep, but you do need those calories when you're awake and when you wake up rather, and you need that energy for work, for your training sessions. So the tip here for having energy in your training sessions, first off, as a bare minimum, is to have some food before you go to your training session. Make sure that you've taken on a decent amount of energy, some carbohydrates, in order to fuel yourself for that training session. That is as a bare minimum backstop to ensure you're not going into that training session low on energy. But ideally, what you want to be trying to achieve is to eat calories consistently throughout the course of the day, to spread out your calorie intake throughout the course of the day so that you are feeling you have a baseline level of energy throughout the course of the day, and you're not peaking and troughing, feeling really energetic at some points and really low at some points, or as I described earlier, you've got barely any energy for the course of the day, then you have tea, your energy spikes right before you go to bed, which disrupts the quality of your sleep because you're still digesting that food as you go to bed, and similarly you're probably feeling quite awake as well. Hence you want to take on board that energy as you wake up and try and keep it consistent throughout the course of the day. Yes, it's going to fluctuate a little bit, but you want to keep that fluctuation to a minimum. And similarly, as you approach your training session, remembering to take on some energy, not too close to the start of the session, otherwise it may make you feel a little bit sick or give you issues with your stomach, but to make sure to take on some in preparation for that training session. So to summarize that point, to even out your calorie intake throughout the course of the day and to eat a little bit of food going into your training session to ensure that you have the fuel that you need in order to power yourself through that session. So that is it for today's video. I've been David Westcough. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.
For more swimming content, click on my profile picture and subscribe to my YouTube channel. For swimming coaching, visit westcough.com, or for another video of mine that I think you'd like, click on the thumbnail.